Development Committee of the Metropolitan Council for January 16th, 2018. Because we're waiting for another member or two of the committee to arrive, let's jump into our conversation about our 2018 work plan members. I should say, first of all, thank you for attendance to those members of the public who are here. Forgive my oversight. Members, our work plan, we've got a pretty robust list of topics that are in many cases continuations of past practice, and in some cases breaking new ground on particular topics. All of these are familiar to all of us, but I just want to briefly walk through and mention a couple of highlights, if I may. We're going to have some conversation later in our meeting about livable communities investments, and I think it's certainly notable that in March we'll be working toward a fund distribution plan and adopting that for the coming year. I think that will be a meaningful dialogue and an opportunity for us to shape policy on that program in the coming year. There's a number of items here under Metro HRA, and I'm very interested in continuing to focus on and give attention to the work that we do that's so critical with the Metro HRA. There are a number of those items also that are in 2018 initiatives, and then also in the information and regular report presentations further down the list. So that's such a critical function that we play in the region that I want to make sure that that's featured prominently. Of course, it's a big year for local planning assistance. We've got 2040 comprehensive plan updates that will be coming in, and also amendments that will be ongoing. But the work of the local planning assistance group helping take in and help us really consider those 2040 comp plan updates, I think will be a really critical function that we play at CDC this coming year. In the regional parks and natural resources area, of course, we've got the regional parks policy plan update that's been underway, but that will be a critical thing to move through and be considered by the committee. A number of other regional park elements that will be ongoing, and the Parks Capital Improvement Program adoption for 2019 to 2024 that we'll plan to adopt in July after some discussion. We've certainly got the budget items, not only amendments as potentially needed, but for 2019, an initial discussion of the budget in the spring. And then finally, the 2018 initiatives, some of which I've already touched on, but also including a connection between workforce development and affordable housing. I think that's a really important topic that we've touched on in a really sort of iterative way over the terms of our service. And I'd really like to see us be able to elevate and really consider that connection in a meaningful way, because as we know, the need for access to quality housing is really urgent across the region, and I see the workforce development, skill development piece of that as being, if not as directly something that we're involved in as an operator, certainly something that is driving the work that we're trying to accomplish together. So then, members, finally, information and regular report presentations. You see a pretty lengthy list at the bottom of page 2 into page 3. And, these are all sort of urgent items that we've tried to budget some time to consider and make sure are woven into the work that we're doing. So that's a bit of a walkthrough of the draft work plan for 2018, and although there are not all of our committee members here present this afternoon, I thought we could get started with this item and have some conversation about whether there are things that you would like to see considered differently, or if there are things that you view as missing from this list in our work plan for the coming year. Councilmember Munn.
Mr. Chair, I think this is a pretty comprehensive list, and I'm very supportive of looking at the connection between workforce development and housing. I'm wondering if we will have the time to take our show on the road as we have done in previous years, going to communities to hold our meetings, especially when the topic is relevant to a particular city.
Councilmember Munn, we have had some conversation with our staff about choices of venue, and I think that it's been valuable in a number of respects to go around the region and be hosted by communities elsewhere. It does entail a significant investment of time and preparation, not only on our staff's part, but also in terms of the host community's involvement. I think I would defer to the committee's will if there's an interest in continuing to share that, share our function in that way. I think having some engagement outside of St. Paul would be well received. And we've done a lot of that the last number of years, and I'm not sure that I would be interested in maintaining that same frequency necessarily, given the investment of time and resources. But if committee members would like to see that continue, I'm certainly open to that. Councilmember Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've enjoyed the community visits. I've attended the meetings that are at the community visits. The problem is we've had a lot of difficulty getting a quorum. Even here today, we can't get a quorum. And when we go on the road and we barely have a quorum or sometimes don't even make a quorum, it's kind of embarrassing. So unless we have the commitment from all of the committee members to be there, I'd rather not give a half-hearted showing of going out to a community, especially knowing how much work they put into making a presentation for us and whatnot, and all the extra staff work of hauling everything out to a remote location.
Thank you. It's well received. Councilmember Munt?
My original intent in wanting to take the show on the road is a run to fire approach. When there's a community that is particularly critical of the council, of our policies, sometimes all of us going to that community is an extension of an olive branch that I think is helpful. So rather than saying we need to go 5 times, I would just suggest that we look at a run to fire approach and go to communities where they really need to have some attention and where they need to experience the work that we do.
Thank you. Other thoughts about the draft work plan?
Looks pretty good.
It's hefty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me just ask if there are issues that you feel like have come up repeatedly in the last number of years that are not included here. I don't see any, but I just want to make sure that we're taking this opportunity if so. Okay. Okay, well, members, the anticipation is to take this conversation and then be able to adopt a formal work plan for the year in in February for the coming year. Councilmember Barber, just to put you on the spot, we're just finishing our conversation about the work plan, the draft work plan. And if you had a chance to view it, I just walked through some of the kind of key highlights. I think there's really a lot of content here. I think it covers a lot of the longer term and more immediate themes that we've been.
I did look through it, and I didn't have any particular comments. It's
Okay.
well thought out to me. So.
Okay, very good. Okay, great. Thank you for your feedback, members. We'll be back then in February for a formal adoption for the 2018 committee work plan. Thank you. Okay. Now with the quorum present, members, I'd like to Entertain a motion to approve our agenda for the meeting this afternoon.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. The agenda is adopted. Now to approve our minutes of our December 18th meeting. Entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there changes or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Thank you. Our December 18th minutes are adopted. On to our business agenda. Our first item is 2018-2, the Robert Pierrum Regional Trail Master Plan Amendment in St. Paul. Michael Paterka, welcome to the committee.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. St. Paul has submitted a master plan amendment for the Robert Pierrum Regional Trail. The original master plan was approved by the council back in April of 2016. Looking at the system map, the Robert Pierrum Regional Trail is located between downtown St. Paul and the city of South St. Paul, and when completed, it'll travel a distance of 3.4 miles. Here we have a more detailed view of the regional trail alignment. When the trail is complete, it will travel from Lilydale Harriet Island Regional Park, which is located to the west of Segment 1, to connections with the River to River Greenway Regional Trail and Mississippi River Regional Trail at Kaposia Landing in the city of South St. Paul, located at the south end of Segment 4. The trail will be a critical link in the regional system as it completes a connection through an area constrained by natural barriers, industry, highways, and the downtown St. Paul airport. There's three primary elements contained in this master plan amendment. The first is changing the trail name. The trail is being changed from the Harriet Island South St. Paul Regional Trail to the Robert Pierrum Regional Trail to honor Mr. Pierrum's 28 years of service as the St. Paul Parks and Recreation Department Superintendent and Director. The second element in the amendment involves shifting the alignment of Segment 2, which is circled on the map on the screen. The original alignment followed the brown dashed line, with the master plan calling for this section of trail to be located on a flood control levee adjacent to the downtown St. Paul airport. This alignment was determined to be unfeasible due to levee structural limitations, airport runway related constraints, and railroad crossings in the area. The new alignment will follow the blue line on the map as it parallels the East Lafayette frontage road through Segment 2. The last element included in the master plan amendment is the identification of a future potential overpass of Barge Channel Road, which is identified in the study area on the map screen. Since the original master plan was approved by the council, the area has seen an increase in truck traffic and development, as well as a new adjacent rail spur through the area. And it's created some issues with the original alignment, making the feasibility of an at-grade crossing less likely. Cost estimates for this overpass weren't submitted with the master plan amendment from the city. And if St. Paul does decide to proceed with the overpass, the city must submit estimated development costs to the council for review and approval. The master plan amendment for the cost estimate for the entire Robert Pierrum Regional Trail, which includes items contained in the amendment, is estimated to be $9.5 million. The estimated amount for land acquisitions is $773,000, with development costs approximately $8.6 million. Given that the Robert Pierrum Regional Trail Master Plan Amendment is consistent with the requirements of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan and other council policies, the staff recommendations before you are that the Metropolitan Council approve the Robert Pierrum Regional Trail Master Plan Amendment, requires St. Paul to submit estimated development costs related to the overpass of Barge Channel Road to the council for review and approval prior to seeking grants for development, and require that prior to initiating development of the trail, preliminary plans be sent to the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services to review in order to assess potential impacts to the regional interceptor system. And that concludes my presentation. Paul Sawyer from St. Paul Parks is in the audience to help answer any questions if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions about the presentation?
Just a
Councilman
comment.
Elkins?
I've ridden through this section here that this trail would close, and it was pretty mean street. So
Definitely.
would look forward to this one. I'll move the approval if there's no other questions or
There's a
comments.
motion? Is there a
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item is North Mississippi Regional Park grant request for the Weber Natural Swimming Pool in Minneapolis. Lori Dupre,
Good afternoon,
welcome.
Mr. Chair and committee members.
Sharing the river water.
This business item before you today is a grant request from Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. They're requesting a grant for $1 million to reimburse them for the construction costs of Weber Pool, which is a natural filtration swimming pool, bathhouse, and site improvements. The Park Board's request is attached to your report in your packet, and it's dated November 9th. And this item was considered by the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission at their meeting on January 2nd. North Mississippi Regional Park is part of the Regional Park and Recreation System identified in the 2040 Parks Policy Plan. It's located along the Mississippi River. It extends from the Camden Bridge area on the south end, north to the I-694 bridge in Brooklyn Center. The inset on this graphic on the right gives you a better understanding of the location of Weber Park in proximity to the Regional Park Master Plan boundary. So it's actually, if you look on Google Maps, it's located between Fremont Avenue North and Lyndale Avenue North in the city of Minneapolis. North Mississippi Regional Park is owned and operated jointly by Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and Three Rivers Park District. So of the approximately 94 acres within the master plan boundary of the Park Board owns and operates 67 acres, and Three Rivers owns and operates 27 acres. And Three Rivers jurisdiction is north of the city limits in the city of Brooklyn Center. In 2013, the legislature included Weber Park in that part of Shingle Creek running through Weber Park within the regional park boundary. And so following that legislative action, Minneapolis Park and Rec Board submitted a Park Master Plan amendment to the council to review to include Weber Park within the park boundary. So the Metropolitan Council reviewed that and took action on July 13th, 2013, and approved the Master Plan amendment for the regional park. With that council action, the council approved the Park Board's request to consider reimbursing Minneapolis Park and Rec Board up to $1 million from the North Mississippi Regional Park Fund for the construction of a natural filtration swimming pool, bathhouse, and site improvements at North Mississippi Regional Park when that amount of interest had been earned in the council's park bonds in accordance with state law. So the rationale for this grant being approved by the council is that the Park Board's request is consistent with the policy plan, Finance Strategy 6, which talks about the council reimbursing regional park implementing agencies for costs of development projects undertaken before they can be financed through the Metropolitan Regional Park CIP. Secondly, the grant request is consistent, as I said, with the council's action in business item 2013-205, which authorized the reimbursement consideration, and therefore the grant is eligible for regional park funding. So a little bit of information or background about the North Mississippi Regional Park Fund. This was a fund that was created by the legislature in 1985, and its intent was to acquire and develop North Mississippi Regional Park. It's comprised of interest earnings on Metropolitan Council park bonds. In 2015, however, the legislature amended the initial law and directed the council to use these interest earnings to fund the use and betterment of all regional recreation and open space lands under the jurisdiction of the Metropolitan Council. And that law went into effect January 1st of this year. To date, the council has authorized approximately $15.5 million in grants from the North Mississippi Regional Park Fund between 1985 and 2013. The Park Board's grant request, as I said, was dated November 9th. The Park Board wanted to request reimbursement of this $1 million, knowing that the fund was going to sunset on January 1st. The current fund balance is sufficient to fund this grant request. And so the recommendation before you today is that the council approve a grant in the amount of $1 million to reimburse Minneapolis Park and Rec Board for the construction of a natural filtration swimming pool, bathhouse, and site improvements at North Mississippi Regional Park. The grant is funded from North Mississippi Regional Park Fund account. And secondly, the standard language to authorize the Community Development Director to execute the grant agreement on behalf of the Metropolitan Council. The Minneapolis Park and Rec Board staff couldn't be here today, nor is Three Rivers staff. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have about the grant request or about the fund.
Thank you very much. Are there questions about the presentation? Councilmember Munt.
Mr. Chair, Tori, I'm wondering, is there a catalytic benefit to this project? It seems to me it's wonderful if kids can swim without chlorine. Will others try to model this kind of a pool?
Councilmember Munt, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Munt, regarding this pool, it is one of the first of its kind in the country. I don't have a lot of information about how it functions, so I don't have a very good answer for your question. Sorry.
Other questions?
Mm-hmm.
If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussions of the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item, members, is an acquisition opportunity for the Rush Creek Regional Trail, the Wegner parcel. Deb Jensen is here to present. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. In 1975, the state legislature authorized the council to award grants for recreation open space purposes to the 10 regional park implementing agencies. And our 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan sets out how we go about doing that. Our siting and acquisition policy puts a priority on properties with access to water, as this property has. The identification of individual properties is at the discretion of the regional parks implementing agencies. In this request is to approve a grant to assist with the acquisition of property to help Three Rivers Park District complete the Rush Creek Regional Trail within the Metropolitan Regional Park system. The eastern portion of this trail is already complete, and it runs from the Coon Rapids Dam Regional Park to Elm Creek Park Reserve. The extension of the trail will run west out to Hassan Township to the Crow-Hassan Park Reserve. There's a lot of property along the way, and Three Rivers estimates a 20 to 30 year horizon for acquiring all of the properties that they will need, because they proceed on a willing seller basis. So when property becomes available, they try to acquire it before it goes back into some other use or into development. Our funding for these grants derives from 4 primary sources. The 3 state sources are state bonds, the Environmental Natural Resource Trust Fund, and the Park and Trails Legacy Fund. For acquisitions, the Regional Parks Policy Plan sets the practice that the council will match every $3 in state funds with $2 in council bonds. And you see that play out here. So what we are requesting is that we purchase the property using, sorry, I can't read that from here. using $166,234 from the 2015 state appropriation from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, another $168,630 from the Park and Trails Legacy Fund, and we match both of those dollar amounts with $223,243 out of our council park bonds. Three Rivers then supplies 25% of the entire project cost as a local match, and that comprises $186,000 and some change. In addition to the property acquisition, Three Rivers is also asking that the council approve potential reimbursement for their portion of the match at some point in the future out of their share of a regional parks capital improvement program. This doesn't mean they would get any more or any less than their share. It would simply be a part of their share. The rationale for this is that the request is consistent with the Regional Parks Policy Plan. The consideration of potential for future reimbursement is eligible, but it is never guaranteed, and we always say that within the wording of the council action. The requirements for the state fiscal year Park and Trail Legacy Fund and the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund appropriation have both been met, and it is consistent with the master plan for Rush Creek Regional Trail. The reason that we're using two state sources for this fund, the property is long and narrow, and the southern portion of it contains a habitable residence. The rules for using the Environment and Natural Resource Trust Fund says that the property cannot contain a residence. So what we've done is split it so that the portion with the house and other outbuildings is going to be funded by the Legacy Fund, whereas the northern portion that has the highest quality natural resources will be funded out of the Natural Resource Trust Fund. That portion has Rush Creek runs right through it. It sort of circles around in an S shape through the property. And while the trail alignment isn't exactly set yet, they hope to take advantage of the creek as it runs through there. This recommendation is long, but basically it says that the council approves the award in the amount of $558,107 total dollars. It authorizes the community development director to sign not only the grant agreement, but the funding declaration and restrictive covenant agreements that are necessary to protect the funding investment of the state and the council, to consider reimbursing Three Rivers Park District for up to their share of the match, up to their share of the grant, and to inform Three Rivers that we don't guarantee that they will ever get that money. If they want the money, they have to come back and ask again, and the council would consider a separate action. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions, council members?
Move the approval.
Okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next item, members, is City of Dayton Sundance Development Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Raya Mali is here to present. Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, my name is Raya Smiley. I'm a senior planner in local planning assistance here to present the amendment for you. The City of Dayton has submitted a comprehensive plan amendment for council review that re-guides about 65 acres from a golf course to low-density residential that is to support a development of 213 housing units. As shown in Figure 1 of the staff report, this map actually shows where the amendment site is located and shows that the City of Dayton is within the community designation area of emerging suburban edge. As shown on this figure, which is Figure 2 of your staff report, this map shows that the amendment area in relation to the regional systems is approximately half mile from Elm Creek Park Reserve and a quarter of a mile from the planned Rush Creek Regional Trail. And these maps are marked as Figure 3 on your staff report. It shows that the amendment involves changing, again, about the 65 acres from golf course to low-density residential. The map on the top shows the existing planned land use, and the one on the bottom shows the proposed planned land use for the area that is outlined with red. That's the amendment site. Some additional details of the amendment is that besides the actual acreage, the purpose of it is to support the 213 housing units, and the remainder of the bigger site, which is about 154 acres, will actually be converted to a 9-hole course. The concept plan currently with the 213 housing units results in 3.27 units per acre of density for this development. And this development later in late 2017, we actually reviewed an environmental assessment worksheet for this specific amendment, and the council staff had a few comments which were addressed, and we had no objection to the update that they provided as findings of fact for that EAW. So the findings of this amendment is that the amendment conforms to the regional system plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. So today, the proposed action in front of you is that the Metropolitan Council adopt the attached review record that would allow the city to put this amendment into effect, and then find that the proposed amendment does not change the city's forecast, and then advise the city to basically implement the comments that we have included in the review record for housing. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Other questions on the presentation? Okay, I entertain a motion then, if committee so wishes.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion to the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, members, our next item of business is an amendment to the 2017 Livable Communities Annual Fund Distribution Plan and Supplemental Livable Communities Demonstration Account Grant Awards. Beth Reeds is here to present this recommendation.
Mr. Chair, council members, Paul Burns is on vacation, and I kind of started this conversation in December at our last meeting, so I am presenting these today for that reason. Following the discussion that we had at the meeting in December, we are handling these as two separate items. First, looking at the regular LCDA program, and then as a second item, which I will follow up with, looking specifically at the LCDA TOD grant category. Oops. So just as background, you'll recall when we discussed this issue in December, there are relinquishments that have accumulated in the Livable Communities Demonstration Account, and also some interest earnings. The relinquishments occur when a grant that has been awarded, when the project does not go forward, or sometimes when the project doesn't take quite the entire amount that was awarded. So as that money accumulates, we are then able to re-grant it and use it as additional funding. There were two projects in the regular 2017 Livable Communities Demonstration Account application process that did not receive any or not full funding. Those two projects were Pioneer Press in St. Paul and the Edison in Roseville. By adding additional available funding, both projects could be fully funded, and by adding the additional money, that maintains the 40-60 guideline split that we have for core cities versus suburban projects in core cities versus projects in suburban locations. So in looking at this chart, you see the development projects, the names to the left, next column being the city that applied for that project, the number of points that were awarded by the Livable Communities Advisory Committee and the internal staff through step 1 and step 2, and the housing performance score that is then added. Next column is the amount that was requested. The next column to the right shows what we previously awarded in the action that you took in December and that the council just approved last week. And by providing the additional, the $250,000 requested by the Pioneer Press project and the additional 246, 288 by the Edison project in Roseville, thereby adding 496,288 additional dollars. We're able to, again, fully fund Pioneer Press, and by supplementing the previously awarded amount for Edison, bringing it up to the full amount for that project. Just as a reminder, the Pioneer Press project includes the renovation and conversion of the Pioneer Press building here in downtown St. Paul into 143 affordable apartment units with a teen tech center run by the YMCA and future retail space along 4th Street. The project will also improve public space and adjacent transit stops. So 143 residential units, 100% of which are affordable. And the Edison project in Roseville is a lifestyle mixed income community that includes a mix of market rate and affordable housing units serving long-term homeless and vets. Project includes expansive solar panels throughout the site, stormwater management system, and a public trail loop around the site. It incorporates supportive services for long-term homeless. For a total of 209 units, 28% of those being affordable. So the proposed action is that the council amend the 2017 annual Livable Communities Fund Distribution Plan to increase the Livable Communities Demonstration Account available funding by $498,288, award the supplemental funding as listed in the chart, i.e. to Pioneer Press and the Edison, and authorize the Community Development Director to execute grant agreements on behalf of the council. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Beth. Committee members, are there questions about the presentation on the item? Okay. We entertain a motion then on the item.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion to the motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to comment, I'll be voting against this for reasons that I spoke of at our previous meeting, that I believe the time to add money to fund distribution is in March when we put out the proposals for everybody to apply, not to do it at the end of the year.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolf. Other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries.
I just voted aye, but without even thinking about it. Can I change my vote?
Councilmember Wolf, yes.
It's been a long
I
day.
had the same question.
I was going to question that.
I think the record should reflect that you voted no on the item.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you. Members, our next item is related. It's an amendment to the 2017 Livable Communities Annual Fund Distribution Plan. It's a waiver of the LCDA Transit-Oriented Development Grant Award limits and supplemental LCDA Transit-Oriented Development Grant Awards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Again, as just a reminder, there are grant relinquishments and interest earnings that have accumulated, resulting in additional funding available for award. There are 3 projects eligible for funding that did not receive any or did not receive full funding. Those are the Mino B project in Minneapolis, the Mariner in Minnetonka, and Penn Avenue Union in the city of Minneapolis. By adding additional available funding, all projects could be fully funded. Staff has presented 2 options. One requires waiving the council established per city award limit of $2 million. Mr. Chair, council members, I also want to acknowledge the fact that I am using the shortened project name of Mino B in Minneapolis because I am not confident that I can pronounce it correctly and would rather just use the shortened term that I have come to know it as instead of crucifying it. So as this chart shows, just as in the previous presentation, we have the name of the projects followed by the city that has applied, the number of points awarded to the project through the scoring processes, the amount requested, the next column showing what was previously awarded to the project through an action that you took back in December and that the full council took last week, and then laying out the 2 options. The first option keeps in place the funding limit per city in the TOD grant category that the council established. So it is not a statutory, but rather a council established limit when the TOD grant category was first initiated. So it is showing an addition. It is showing 500,000 to the Mino B project. That, in addition to the 1.5 million that was previously awarded to the 38th Street Station, would put the maximum or the limit for the city of Minneapolis at 2 million. And then moving on to the next highest scoring project, which is the Mariner in Minnetonka, at $1,876,500 for a total additional award of $2,376,500. The second option waives the $2 million limit and then therefore is showing the full funding for the Mino B project at $1,800,000 as requested, fully funding the Mariner project in Minnetonka at $1,876,500, and then also fully funding the Penn Avenue project in in Minneapolis at $1,069,819. Just as a reminder, the Mino B project, which the full name of that project is Ojibwe, meaning the good life, is a mixed-use development that includes 109 units of affordable housing, a wellness center, and the Red Lake Nation Urban Embassy. The project includes 22 units below 30% area median income, 44 units between 31 and 50% AMI, and 43 units between 51 and 60% AMI, for total dwelling units of 109, 100% of which are affordable at those different affordability levels, and also 40 full-time jobs. The Mariner project in Minnetonka is a mixed income development directly adjacent to the Southwest LRT Opus station. The Mariner will create 246 new units of housing with rent levels ranging from 30% AMI to over 100% AMI. Redevelopment of the existing office buildings on the 3.2-acre site will include 191 units at market rate and 55 units priced from $650 to $1,118, or 50% of area median income. So again, a total of 246 units, 22% of which are affordable. And lastly, the Penn Avenue Union project is a mixed-use, mixed-income development on the northwest corner of Penn Avenue and Golden Valley Road. It will be a newly constructed 4-story building with 64 units and 10,000 square feet of commercial space. 60 of the units will be affordable at 51 to 60% of the area median income. Secured tenants include the Minneapolis Police Substation, a sit-down restaurant, and the Building Blocks, which is a nonprofit that serves elementary and middle school age children. So a total of 64 units, 94% of which are affordable. So we have proposed action option 1 and proposed action option 2. The first, as I indicated, supports, again, a total of I can't see that either, 2,376,500 to the Mino B project and the Mariner project. Option 2 is full funding to the Mino B project, full funding to the Mariner and to the Penn Avenue Union for a total of $4,746,319.
Thank you, Beth.
I'm done. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think this is a good time. We have a member of the public who'd like to address the committee, Mr. Sam Strong from the Red Lake Band of Chippewa. Thank you for coming. If you would, please introduce yourself for the record, and we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Hello, my name is Sam Strong, and thank you for taking the time to hear from me and the other Red Lake Band members and other staff that came to this meeting. Thank you for taking the time to hear from us. I'm the Economic Development and Plan Director. I'm the project manager for this project. Real quickly, I just want to kind of go through a little bit about who we are. I think sometimes people have a misplaced notion of Native Americans somewhat. So we're located in northern Minnesota. We have about 1 million acres of land, about 12,000 band members. About half of them live off reservation. And so back in the 60s, there was this urban relocation program. And Minneapolis was one of the major cities where these natives got moved to. In fact, my father was a part of that program. I was born in Minneapolis. And so what's happened as a result of that is that you have these pockets of Native Americans that live in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that are extremely impoverished, very disadvantaged, much the same as on reservation. And this development is an opportunity for us to change the dial on the urban Native American experience. As you were shown earlier, 5 stories of residential. The ground floor will be a wellness center as well as our urban embassy. And the really cool thing about that is we're able to serve our people in a way that's culturally appropriate. And if you know anything about Native Americans, our identity is what helps us solve the problems that we face today. And there's a lot of research that's gone into that. We've shown that as a tribe, when we do that, when we handle our natives in that culturally appropriate manner, it works. And so our intent is to bring those same practices down here to work with all the human services within Minneapolis, within St. Paul, within the Twin Cities area, and really maximize what we're doing for our people down here. I think that's really the main thing I wanted to talk about. You know, sadly, we're a very disadvantaged people. We have housing and healthcare disparities across the board. We're one of the most disadvantaged segments of the population. And this is a chance for us to bring about that equity, bring about that opportunity to really uplift the Native community here. And so I really want to just offer any questions that you guys may have for us, but really just kind of try to frame the picture that this is really an opportunity to change a lot of these people's lives, not only in this region, but also all across the Minneapolis Twin Cities area. We chose this project site very deliberately, with the light rail being one of the core components of it, is because we really want our people to be traveling from St. Paul, from everywhere along the public transportation nodes to come to this wellness clinic so they can start to uplift their own lives and really change the things that are holding them back in their lives. And so I don't want to get too much into detail. I know you guys have a long agenda, but real quickly, I wanted to talk about this is a chance for us to holistically really uplift the urban Native American population. I'm really excited about it, and thank you for taking the time to let me talk about this great project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strong. Are there questions either for Mr. Strong or Ms. Reeds? Councilmember Munt.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Strong, option 1 includes $500,000 for Mayo B. Option 2 includes $1.8 million. What is the difference for you between those two options?
Yes, it's a great question. It's a huge difference. I mean, at this point, we're looking at filling our gap, right? And being able to fill our gap, that $1.8 million is extremely critical. So we're going to MHFA, we're going to these other funding sources, and they require that we fill a percentage of that gap. And if we're able to get the full 1.8 million, we'll be at that threshold that allows us to score high enough to really complete this project. So to answer your question really succinctly, it will allow us to complete the project. So it's a huge difference.
Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sounds like a great project, but I have procedural questions in that when I'm looking at this overall distribution of funding, if you go with option B, 62% or thereabouts of the money goes to Minneapolis and St. Paul. Given that the money originally came from LCDA and has sort of shifted over into the TOD thing, are there any limitations on what percentage can go to Minneapolis and St. Paul overall with the funding like there is with the other LCDA grants?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Wolf, there are no statutory limits. In the fund distribution plan, the council has established the 40-60 guideline overall. When the TOD grant category was established, the additional $2 million per city was established as, again, a council determined guideline, but it is within your discretion to determine what the split is.
Councilmember Wolf.
Can I follow up on that? It would appear that Minneapolis asked for well in excess of $4 million worth of grants for a program that has a $2 million limit. I find that difficult to change, in addition to my concerns from the previous item of changing funding totals in midstream, having the city not prioritize their own internal asks to what the limit is, and then going well over double the limit for the city is problematic for me. I certainly want to fund the project, but I would feel much better about funding it in the next round with keeping the money going over rather than giving one city more than double what its normal limit would be.
Mm-hmm. Other questions, members? Councilmember Ramon.
Mr. Chair, just a statement. At a time when there is such an intense demand for affordable housing, I don't think we should keep this money in the bank. I think we should spend it in whatever community is willing to develop projects that will be successful, and I think these three will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Elkins.
agree with Councilmember Munt. I mean, these are good projects. They, are entirely consistent with the goals of the program. And, and a couple of these are in areas much in need of a catalyst of this kind. So I'm going to vote to support option 2.
Okay, members, if the committee is willing, I would entertain a motion then toward
Mr. Chair, I
Councilmember
move
Mott.
option 2 with the understanding that we are waiving the $2 million per city cap just for this instance.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a motion and second. Is there discussion to the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, committee members.
I'd like to say the whole name for the record. Nino Bimad Zealand.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Good wishes. Thank you. Sorry, I should have said that. In our
Committee members, that concludes our business agenda. I just would like to walk through and confirm which of these we could place on, or we propose to include these on the consent agenda for the full council. Beth, do you have a suggestion on that front?
Mr. Chair, my recommendation would be for 1, 2, 3, and 4 to be on the consent agenda, and 5 and 6 to be non-consent.
Okay, is that acceptable to members? Okay, very good. With that, unless there's new business, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.